The latest, Fed uncertain on banking for marijuana firms. Washington, AP, the latest on the Federal Reserve policy meeting, all times local, 3:20 p.m. Ad choice advertising and red invented by T's. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says the U.S. Central Bank has not resolved how financial institutions should deal with marijuana businesses. Marijuana usage is permitted in some states, but not by federal law. Powell says the disparity puts Fed regulators in a very difficult position and that the Fed would love to see the hazy issue clarified. He made the comments at a news conference following a Fed meeting at which the central bank raised its benchmark interest rate for the second time this year. Advertisement ____ 3:10 p.m. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says the central bank is hearing growing concerns from business executives about the Trump administration's trade policies, including anecdotal cases where companies have postponed larger purchases or new hires. But those trends have yet to impact an economy that Powell says is in great shape. You're beginning to hear reports of companies holding off on investments and hiring people, Powell said in a news conference Wednesday following the Fed's move to raise its benchmark interest rate. Now, we don't see that in the numbers at all. Trump has slapped tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, has threatened additional tariffs on $50 billion of Chinese imports, and has directed his administration to consider further duties on imported cars. Those moves have lifted steel and aluminum costs, ____ 2:45 p.m. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says the U.S. Central Bank will double the number of news conferences it holds each year to 8 from 4. The Fed holds news conferences after the meetings of its Open Markets Committee in order to explain its policy decisions and views on the U.S. economy. Former Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke started the practice of having 4 news conferences a year in 2011. Advertisement, but Powell says he didn't want to create the impression that policies only change after meetings with news conferences, so they'll now follow all 8 meetings. The additional conferences will begin in January. ____ 2:10 p.m. Federal Reserve policymakers expect to raise their benchmark interest rate 4 times this year, up from a March projection of 3, reflecting their forecast that the unemployment rate will fall to a 50-year low later this year and inflation will rise more quickly. The Fed also decided Wednesday to lift short-term rates for the second time this year, to between 1.75% and 2%. That suggests they will hike rates twice more this year to between 2.25% and 2.5%. Fed policymakers also expect 3 hikes next year, the same number they forecast in March, and 1 in 2020. Fed officials expect unemployment to reach 3.6% by the end of this year, the lowest since 1969, down from an earlier forecast of 3.8%. Inflation will reach 2.1% late this year, slightly above the Fed's target, up from 1.9% previously forecast, ____ 2 p.m. As widely anticipated, the Federal Reserve has raised its short-term federal fund rate, what banks charge each other, by 0.25 points to a range of 1.75 to 2%. Fed officials voted unanimously on Wednesday to increase this key rate, which influences the flow and supply of money in the U.S. economy. The statement by Fed officials explaining the vote also hinted at a slightly faster pace for future rate increases. They removed the previous language that the rate is likely to remain, for some time, below levels that are expected to prevail in the longer run. Advertisement, it's the second rate increase of this year, and Fed officials anticipate 1 or 2 additional hikes before 2019. Fed Chair Jerome Powell will discuss the decision at a 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time News Conference, ____12:30 p.m. Home builders are taking a beating on Wall Street ahead of Wednesday afternoon's Federal Reserve meeting, where analysts are expecting a rate increase. The Fed's rate hikes can translate into higher interest rates for credit card holders and homeowners with adjustable rate mortgages or home equity lines of credit. The construction industry is already wrestling with rising costs for labor, material and available land. External factors, like rising gasoline prices, may also be putting the squeeze on potential buyers. Fewer Americans signed contracts to buy homes in April due to a shortage of inventory. Mortgage rates had ticked down the past couple weeks, providing some relief for potential home buyers. But with a quarter-point hike expected from the Fed, that relief may be short-lived. KB Home shares fell 6%. Meritage Homes Corp., Pultec Group, Lennar Corp., and Dr. Horton all slid around 5%. Materials companies and home improvement stores like Lowe's are also being pressured. Mortgage rates remain historically low, but a combination of rising costs is weighing on the sector broadly. 6:30 a.m. Stocks are edging up ahead of an interest rate meeting by the Federal Reserve. Futures for the Dow are up 0.1% and those for the S. European indexes are up, with Germany's DAX gaining 0.2% and Britain's FTSE 100 0.3% higher. The dollar, meanwhile, is edging up as well, gaining 0.1% against the yen, to 110 yen and 52 cents. Traders widely predict the Fed will raise its main rate by a quarter point on Wednesday. They also expect its chairman, Jerome Powell, to hint during a news conference that the central bank might accelerate the pace of rate hikes slightly in coming months. ___4:50 a.m. Financial markets are steady as investors look ahead to an expected interest rate increase from the Federal Reserve later Wednesday. Dow Jones. Britain's FTSE 100 is down 0.1% and France's CAC 40 is 0.2% higher. While traders widely expect the quarter-point rate increase, they will be paying close attention to a news conference by Fed Chair Jerome Powell for hints on whether the central bank might accelerate the pace of rate hikes in coming months. The U.S. economy is adding jobs at a strong pace and inflation has risen, leading some economists to think that the Fed will indicate that it may raise rates 4 times this year, up from its current forecast of 3 hikes. ___12:05 a.m. The Federal Reserve is set to modestly raise its key short-term interest rate on Wednesday for the second time this year. But attention will be focused mainly on any hints that the Fed might accelerate its rate hikes in the coming months. Some economists think the Fed will signal that it expects to raise rates 4 times this year, up from its current projection of 3 hikes. Others believe the central bank will stick with its projection of 3 rate increases, partly out of concern that rising trade tensions triggered by President Donald Trump's aggressive policies might slow global growth. The policymakers will reveal their action in a policy statement and in updated economic forecasts, followed by a news conference by Chairman Jerome Powell. By Taboola Sponsored links Promoted links You may like family-minded, global parenting tactics that haven't caught on in the use of family-minded unto Vikings. Free online game. Play this for 1 minute and see why. Everyone is addicted. Vikings, free online game. Win a throne, free online game. Play this for 2 minutes and see why everyone is addicted. Throne, free online game. Under Emirates. Take advantage of our GSS special fares from 1.169 Singapore dollars. Emirates Undo. Enjoy compare best credit cards in Singapore. Compare today. Enjoy compare and wow fashionable sexiest camo wedding dresses fantasy according to Mana Fashionable Undo.